forward to the first interview and conversation that we're going to have about the 11 ICF Core Coaching Competencies. And we're going to start with the first one. We're going to start with ethics and professional guidelines in the coaching profession. It's the foundational one. And we're going to explore it for about 15 minutes with you. But before that, I think it's going to be beneficial for anyone who's listening to this interview to know who we are and who I'm talking to. So on mine, just one sentence. My name is Ramona. I am the community manager for the Wisdom Tree Academy, and I'm also the main administrator of the Coaching Mastery Circle. And this project is really about bringing the core competencies to life. And we have a set of really experienced and professional coaches to discuss this with. Very exciting. And today it's Paul Sanbar. So hi, Paul, again. Just say a few words about yourself and what brought you into this first interview about ethics.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Paul Sanbar. I'm a professionally certified coach with the ICF. I'm born and raised here in Los Angeles, spent a little bit of time out of the country, but Los Angeles is my home, and I am a part of the ICF Los Angeles chapter, and of course part of the ICF global community. And I'm a coach who really holds true to the importance of the ethics and the standards of this profession that has been around for a long time, but has grown quite a bit in recent years. And I think it's so important that, like this core being the foundation, that we start off on the right foot with this profession.
Great. Thank you. And I saw you already going into a state of reflection and of closing your eyes with it and going deep within, which I think is needed. And when we talk about ethics, because we could do one thing now, we just read off, the ICF standards, like ethical guidelines, and we're done. That would be very boring, so we're not going to do that. So just, say a few words about what you think is so important about actually having a set of professional standards and ethical guidelines.
Yeah, so I may have looked up and started going into my imagination. There are standards that have been written down, and we hold very true to them. But really, as coaches, we're on the forefront of creating these guidelines because it is different than what a lot of people may think coaching is. Part of the first guideline is to differentiate between what coaching, what consulting, what mentorship is, what teaching is, and even advising. And it's so important that that everybody understands that there is a big difference, and that as coaches, we make sure to stay in what is our scope of practice. And that's why these guidelines are so important, and it's so important to hold on to them with vigor because there is such a broad array of what a lot of other people think a coach is. And I say a lot, the client or customer is always right, but in this circumstance, we have to let them know what coaching is, because so often they come to us thinking that it's so different.
Yeah. So the managing expectations part as well.
Yeah.
And say a few things about, and I know you have a different background to coaching as well, that requires a very, very thorough set of ethics and of professional guidelines. So just say a few words about that and what you bring into coaching from that.
Sure. Yes. Thank you. So I was a psychotherapist, like many coaches that do make a transition, are or have been. And in the state of California, where I live, the guidelines are one of the most stringent in the world. And so when I stepped into coaching, I actually wanted to keep a lot of those ethical standards, because they, to me, are where we as coaches are going. And just like just like with the GDPR that Americans are adopting from Europe, I think in the same way we have to adopt the highest standards, because right now there are not a lot of regulations, and there are a lot of people that are just deciding to be coaches and doing it because it seems like a fun thing to do. And so as a therapist, you can't just decide to be a therapist. You have to go through many years of training, and it's moving the same way in the coaching profession. I know in Europe you have to have supervision now, and that's something that we'll hopefully be adopting in North America as well. And so this is where we're going, and so if so why not act as if we are already there for those of us who are doing it, and this is what we do. This isn't something that we've just deciding to do, because it seems like fun or a cool way to make a couple extra dollars. No, this is what we do, and this is actually why I transitioned into coaching, because I could be a coach 24 hours a day. And that's really important to me, to leave this place that we're on just a little better than I found it. And being a coach and holding true to those standards was how I'd be able to go about it.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, so you mentioned something about like looking in the future and being there and then holding the standards, walking the talk. Like how do you actualize that in your practice? What is that there, that kind of landscape of
Sure.
being settled, rooted in
One,
that?
yeah. So the having a clearly defined contract is really important, and holding true to that. And so when we can use that, with words and on a piece of paper, but really what that is holding. As a coach, we hold a space, and in that space, while we hope for infinite possibilities, we have to have finite boundaries around them.
Mm.
And so it is so important that we are very clear and upfront, just like any relationship that you want to have be a robust and dynamic one. You state your intentions, just like we want our clients to do. We have to do as a coach, to state who we are, what exactly we do, what we don't do, and what falls in what may be a gray area. Let's talk about that now, so that you know exactly what you're getting. And so the contract, that conversation, the reason why we have such a whether it be a discovery call or a chemistry call, whatever you call it, the reason why we make that so important before the coaching gets started is so that we can set that foundation, which is what this core competency is all about.
Mm. Yeah. Something that stood out to me, like right off the bat, was that analogy, in a way, maybe, if you want to say so, if you can only create space with the client if you have clearly stated boundaries. So
Right.
in a way, a way of creating safety through those
Mm-hmm.
standards, to actually, for the client and for the coach, to go beyond their comfort zones, to go to the growth edge of the client, to go
Right.
to those kind of edges, and when we're really honest, to also go to the growth edge of ourselves as a coach. So how is that like for
Yeah.
you? Like I'm curious, because it's very easy to talk about creating space and creating safety, and it's probably one of the the hardest things to do. So
Sure.
how was your experience in that? Where are your challenges? Where are you like, yes, this is what I found out in the process of it?
Yeah. So for me, going to my background a little bit, having difficult conversations is something that I've had to do for a very long time. Asking people, you know, this is not exactly the direction of this conversation, but assessing for suicidality is something that I've had to do many times. And those are really hard questions. And so for me, because I've had to ask those type of questions in the past. I'm so happy that I don't have to do it now. But I it, asking those tough questions in advance will allow us to go deeper, will create that space, will allow the rapport to be built, and will also let our client or future client know that we are capable of holding this space so that we can go deeper or broader or further than even they can imagine at this moment.
So what are the tough questions for you? Like if it's not the suicide one, then what are the ones
Sure,
that get you all
sure.
sweaty? That was
Um,
how
well,
do you
that
notice
I
that?
have to ask her that for me, it's just it's maybe not it may not be a tough question, but it's really clearly defining what coaching is and what I am here to offer them and what I am able to do to in my scope of both practice and also my scope of competence, right? And so letting them know that if you want, and I have this conversation often, uh, I say, if you want somebody to tell you what to do, I can refer you out to a few people. I can ask you for your parents' number and give you that. um, but that's not what I do. And so if that's what you're looking for, then maybe this isn't the type of relationship that you're wanting. If you want to do some work and dig into what you want and find the resources either within or put in the work to go find them outside of yourself, then I'm right there with you. But for me, that's the so being unafraid to ask that question initially is really important. Um, I think maybe sometimes earlier on I didn't want to know because I just wanted as many clients as possible. But now that I've walked the walk, and that now that people come and ask for my services, I can't. It's because I laid that groundwork and I clearly defined what this profession is about, at least in my training and how I want to provide these services.
Mm. Yeah, and what I'm extracting from that as well, based on what you were saying, and also, on a more general note, is it's a constant reevaluation of because you ask yourself that question first as a coach. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what am I here for? What is my work here? What is my safety? And then you tackle that's probably difficult questions with the client.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
where do
So I
you?
think a lot.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think a lot of the difficult questions are actually the questions that we have to ask ourselves, and the clients maybe never even hear because we've already set the foundation with ourselves, that we're going to start this relationship the right way, and so when you asked about the difficult questions, really in my mind, there was only the one. Obviously, that may come about from the conversation, but really that's the one question that I have because I've been asking myself the difficult questions to create my own awareness, to know, you know, to know where my profession ends and where other professions begin,
Yeah.
and so the ability to set my ego aside to say that this is what I do, and there are other people who do other things, and I'm more than happy to refer you to them, because I'm not going to serve you by trying to serve myself and provide things that I'm not trained to do, even though personally I am trained to do, but that would not be who this profession nor the profession that I came from.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important
Yeah.
parts. What would you say is um, what is your wish for the coaching profession? And I saw a post in the group actually just yesterday about a bit more of a provocative one about, is the coaching profession dying? So we're going counter a little bit, because we're talking about what does it need to thrive and to succeed, and the foundations of it. So what do you what's your wish for coaching as a profession as a whole, and for the growth of ethical professional standards and ethical guidelines?
I often refer to this time in coaching as the Wild West. And I look back to 100 years ago, when it was the Wild West of psychotherapy, and how there was not an American Psychological Association. There were not, in the state of California, the Board of Behavioral Sciences. And so my goal, and it's quite simple, is that if I'm speaking to somebody and they ask me, and they may be looking for a coach or something like that, and they say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "Well, I'm a coach." And my hope, my dream is that everybody then asks the question, "Well, are you certified?" and and because to me, that's why I volunteer for the ICF LA. That's why I'm a member of the global chapter. That's why I go out into the community and try to share what we do. Knowing that the ICF, while it may be right now the one of the biggest global standards, it's still not the, with a capital T, global standard. And so I know there's still work to be done, but I also know that it is so important, and coaching is not going away. It's been here forever, and it will go on forever. What's going to happen is that it's going to become more clearly defined. And you know what? It may take on a different name. It may no longer be called coaching in 20 years. And it maybe has to change the name, so that this, whatever the name may be, people go, "Ah, yes, that person can provide me with these services, and that's what I'm looking for."
Right. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Paul. Thank you so much for taking your time, for just putting in a little puzzle piece into that big picture together with me and for the whole community. And with that, we'll leave it. We both hope that you got some nuggets, some thought-provoking nuggets out of this conversation, and reflect on it yourself, on your own professional standards and ethical guidelines that you follow and that you create and co-create with your clients. And with that, the first out of 11 interviews and the 11 ICF Core Competencies is done. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much, Ro.